Today we're going to look at another sutta from SD 47.10, the Satipatthana Bahaya Sutta. This sutta is simply called Bahaya Sutta. There are at least 3 monks called Bahaya, so here we make the sutta more distinct and recognizable by adding the prefix Satipatthana, because the sutta tells us about how the Buddha teaches the practice of the focus of mindfulness to this monk called Bahaya. This sutta is the discourse, the Bahaya discourse on Satipatthana, S47.15. This sutta is also called Bahika Sutta, because the name of this monk is also spelled as Bahika, the Bahika discourse. The theme is effective meditation and Bahaya's arahathood. By now I'm sure those of you who have been following this series of study, and if you have studied the suttas on your own, and by that I mean the early Buddhist texts, EBT, you'll discover that the teachings are simple and yet profound. It's amazing how the Buddha could put together some very simple words, and yet the teaching points to some very profound truths and our own liberation. These are like signboards. The simple words: go here, go there, turn left, turn right, take 10 steps ahead, and so on. And then you come to this really beautiful place. The early suttas are precious to us because by the simple fact that they are early, meaning that they are the closest records we have to the earliest teachings of the Buddha, the historical Buddha. It is really strange that some people seem to think that the early Buddhist teachings are outdated or even unimportant. Maybe they don't realize the value of such teachings because of their own opinions, which they have held since childhood, and then they keep on looking for authentication and reinforcement as they grow older, and then they read books, they meet teachers, and in the end they come up with all these amazing, imaginative and fantastic ideas which are not really helpful to anybody, and maybe not even to them. And worst of all, they are being distracted away from what really matters, that is the early Buddhist text. So if we have the early Buddhist text with us and we study it, we will find that it helps us in our meditation. So this wisdom of the suttas, the peace of your meditation, you begin to feel and live the beauty of the Dharma. And once you understand all these teachings and all these experiences, it's easier to appreciate, to understand and to live the reality of impermanence. And once we understand the nature of impermanence and make a habit of reflection on impermanence, then, as the Buddha says in the 10 suttas of the chapter 25 of the Samyutta, we are guaranteed to attain stream winning in this life itself. And this should be the minimum goal in our life as Buddhists. If we look around, any Sunday, go to any temple, the majority of Buddhists you'll find are what we can call aimless Buddhists, or even lost Buddhists, gloriously lost Buddhists, celebrating their loss, not even knowing it. Because we do not have a goal in this life. And if we take the trouble to ask them, as a Buddhist, what is your spiritual goal in this life? Not many of them will tell you, I aspire to be a stream winner. That shows they do not really know the sutta. the sutta teachings. Of course, even the monks will say, oh, it's difficult to become arhat. So all you hear is, it's difficult to be this, it's difficult to be that, we can never get the goal of the Buddha's teaching. It's rather strange to hear this kind of very unsatisfactory kind of answer. You begin to wonder, why do they practice Buddhism at all, if they are? So this is partly the fault of the teachers, partly the tradition they're following, which are keeping to purely ritualistic and cultural and superstitious practices. So because of that, imagine if you actually believe in the Buddhist teachings, the future rebirth will not be very good. If the sutta says if you have wrong views, the future rebirth will be either in the animal world if you have wrong views, and if you teach this kind of wrong views to others and they believe it, then you'll be reborn in suffering states. So imagine where the Buddhists are heading for then, so-called Buddhists. So it's very important that we study the suttas, know where we're heading, where we can head and must head, namely string winning, and the suttas are telling us how to do it. So it is with this kind of spirit that we should listen to the sutta, read the suttas, and practice the Dharma. So we have this monk called Piya who wants to become an arhat. He goes before the Buddha and requests the Buddha a short teaching. Now, for those who are curious about this name Piya, there are at least 3 Piyas, Piya 1, 2 and 3. All this can be found in the notes, in the introduction to this chapter 10 of ST 47. Piya number 1 is of course the famous Piya Dharuchiriya, the bark-cloth Piya, who died as a layman arhat. And number 3 is another Piya, and this is we can call Piya number 2. So we know nothing much about this Piya except this sutta. But even then, it is enough to know that we have an arhat here. Now this sutta is also interesting because it shows to us that it has the marks of a very old teaching, a very ancient text. Let me show you what I mean. In other words, how do we know it is an old text? Let's look at the translation and the Bahiya Discourse on Satipatthana, S 47.15. Now, the sutta starts off. The narrator tells us originating in Savatthi, so this event took place in Savatthi. Then the Venerable Bahiya or Bahika approached the Blessed One, saluted him, and sat down at one side. Sitting thus at one side, the Venerable Bahiya said this to the Blessed One: "It would be good, Bhante, if the Blessed One were to teach me the Dhamma in brief." Right? Sankita Dhamma. Whenever there's a request for the Dhamma in brief, means this monk is going to retreat to practice, and usually he will become an arhat. And indeed, this is the case here. And he continues, he says, "Having heard the Dharma from the Blessed One, I would dwell alone, aloof, or secluded, diligent, exertive, and resolute." So this is called a stock passage or a pericope of taking leave of the Buddha to go into solitary retreat. The Buddha immediately answers Bahiya and says, "In that case, Bahiya, purify the very beginning in wholesome states." Right? Purify the very beginning in wholesome states. And immediately the Buddha says, what is this? Okay? And what is the very beginning in wholesome states? It is moral virtue that is well purified, and view that is straight. View that is straight. I usually translate ditti, if it is right view, as singular. In other words, it's a way of looking at things without any opinion, so to speak. So here we have the wholesome state, the very beginning in wholesome states. There are 2 aspects, in other words. First, precepts. So the Buddha tells Bahiya, make sure your precepts are well kept. The rules are well kept. Why? So that we don't start worrying. Did I do something wrong? Why did I do this wrong? And all these thoughts will come back and become a hindrance to us. So we try our best to keep the precepts. Of course, as lay people, it may be a little difficult for us sometimes to keep all the precepts. So this is where we remember moments like this when you're listening to the suttas. You reflect on the peacefulness as you listen, and you're keeping the precepts. That period when you are listening to the suttas, to the Dharma, you are keeping the precepts. So use that as your sila nusati, as your recollection of the moral virtue. And then when you feel peaceful, then you go on to practice meditation. But there's something else here. The Buddha says, the view that is straight. Okay, ujuka ditti. Here, of course, one meaning is to let go of all views, have no opinion if possible. If not, simply reflect on impermanence, and you won't be wrong then. Constantly reflect on impermanence in all your experiences. The word uju has also another important sense in meditation. If you keep the precepts well and your views are purified, then your mind goes straight, uju goes straight to the object. In other words, you can direct your attention right away to the breath, or to loving kindness, or to walking meditation, and so on, to whatever meditation you are doing. So in simple terms, these are some understanding of these terms: moral virtue and view that is straight. Right, the Buddha continues and says, then Bahiya, when your moral virtue is well purified and your view is straight, depending on that moral virtue, establish in that moral virtue, cultivate the four focuses of mindfulness, the four satipatthana. So probably in this case, this monk may be spending a bit of time just to be sure that that he has not broken any precepts, and number two, that he's clear about the Buddha's teaching, about the Dharma. So once all these are clear, then he qualifies to go for retreat, personal retreat. In other words, not everybody would be effective in going for a retreat. There's a case of Mekiya, for example. He saw this beautiful place and he wanted to go for his own personal practice. But the Buddha told him it's not the right time. But he insisted, so the Buddha said okay. And then he couldn't meditate, he went there. So we must be ready in this way. Our moral virtue must be strong, and we must have right view before we go into such a retreat. Right, so now the Buddha says, when you have done this, moral virtue is well purified and the view is straight, then you can practice and cultivate the four focuses of mindfulness, the four satipatthana. The Buddha continues and says, what are the four? And then you have the four definitions, the definition of the four focuses of mindfulness. But there's something very interesting here. We have a very short definition here. In other words, we have only the four satipatthana without the satipatthana refrain. There is nothing extra, only the four satipatthana. And it goes like this. Here by here, dwell exertive, clearly aware, mindful, contemplating or watching the body in the body, removing covetousness and displeasure in the world. This is standard satipatthana formula. So, exertive, put in all the effort you can, clearly aware, maintain your mindfulness, and mindful, knowing what you're doing, watching or contemplating body in the body. This is body-based meditation. For example, watching the breath, parts of the body, actions of the body, walking, and so on and so forth. And what is the purpose of this? In other words, this is kind of like the beginning practice of satipatthana, removing covetousness and displeasure in the world. So this preliminary practice is to clear the mind of the 5 mental hindrances, beginning with sensual pleasure. Okay? So here we have covetousness, which actually refers to sensual pleasure, and displeasure refers to the second hindrance, which is ill will. So these two, covetousness and displeasure, form a shorthand for the 5 mental hindrances. So in other words, we practice, for example, breath meditation to clear the mind, and the mind clears, and we go deeper into our meditation, back and forth, like that. That's the first part. That's all there is to the body-based meditation. The next, the Buddha says, here by here, dwell exertive, clearly aware, mindful, contemplating feelings in the feelings, removing covetousness and displeasure in the world. So here we have the second satipatthana, second focus of mindfulness, watching feelings, or feeling-based meditation. And all the Buddha says here is go on watching it to remove liking, disliking, any kind of distraction in meditation. This is second focus of mindfulness. And then the third one, Buddha continues, here by here, dwell exertive, clearly aware, mindful, contemplating the mind in the mind, removing covetousness and displeasure in the world. This time is the mind-based meditation, watching the thoughts, letting go of the thoughts, removing any kind of distraction because of liking, because of desire, or disliking because of ill will in the world. Okay, I've not explained the phrase in the world. In the world here it refers to the senses, especially the 5 physical senses, and of course the mind is included too. The mind a little later. The mind normally is dealt with last, because the mind is still there throughout the meditation and manner of speaking until the mind kind of, the mind is free of thoughts, then the person goes into deeper jhana, even meditation, into deep samadhi and into jhana. So here we have the person meditating on body-based meditation, such as the breath, and watching feelings, feeling-based meditation, then mind-based meditation, clearing the mind of thoughts. So it's watching the breath all the time, clearing away the thoughts, removing the 5 mental hindrances. In other words, renouncing the 5 physical senses, any kind of input from the 5 physical senses. So once, as we keep on doing that, this first renunciation, this kind of bodily renunciation, if you like, then we go on to the mental renunciation, letting go of thoughts. Okay? And we can say that is done in the third satipatthana, mind-based meditation. And then number 4, the Buddha says, here by here, dwell, exertive, clearly aware, mindful, contemplating dharmas or phenomena in the dharmas, removing covetousness and displeasure in the world. This is the Dhamma-based meditation. Whatever mental states, whatever realities that arise in the mind, we have something like, we can say visions of the Four Noble Truths. Even we begin to notice the nature of the 5 aggregates, or even the 5 mental hindrances. We notice them as they are, watch them as they are, and then let them arise, let them go. So this is the 4th satipatthana. So the Buddha continues, he says, but here, when depending on that moral virtue, based on that moral virtue, you cultivate these 4 focuses of mindfulness, then the night or day will come when you can be certain of growth in the wholesome states, not decline. Okay, so the Buddha finishes his instruction there, and then the narrator says, then the Venerable Piya, delighted, rejoiced in the Blessed One's word, rose from his seat and paying homage to the Blessed One, keeping him to his right, departed. And then the sutta closes. Then the Venerable Piya, dwelling alone, aloof, diligent, executive and resolute, in no long time at all, right here, right now, having realized it for himself through direct knowledge, attain and dwell in the supreme goal of the holy life, for the sake of which sons of family rightly go forth from the household life into homelessness. Right? So here again we see a reminder, the purpose of renunciation is not to get some PhD or become a lecturer or become famous, but to awaken in this life. And that's the purpose of going forth, to reach the supreme goal of the holy life. And then there is this review knowledge of Piya. He directly knew birth is destroyed. The holy life has been lived, done what is to be done, and there is no more of this state of being. Right? So here, there is no more rebirth for him. There's a nirvana, in other words. The holy life has been lived. The holy life is the training, the three trainings: Sila, Samadhi, Panya, moral virtue, and meditation, wisdom, all done. And whatever needs to be done, all the duties as a monk, for meditation, for attaining awakening, all has been done. There is no more of this state of being, no more again becoming. And the Venerable Piya became one of the Arhats. So here we see a very terse, a very short Satipatthana Sutta. Now once we see something short like this, it is likely to be very old. Normally in the suttas, when you see something develop becoming longer, it's likely to be a little later if you compare different suttas. So what does this mean? One possibility is that this sutta records a teaching at a time quite early in the Buddha's ministry, possibly in the first period. This is the theory of the two periods which I use. The first period is, we can say, from the first 10 years to first 20 years of the Buddha's ministry, when the teachings were very simple, almost no technicality in the suttas. The teachings are very simple, very direct, very personal to each of to fit the audience. And here's an example of that kind of sutta. In the second period, which is more or less the last 25 years, if you like. Okay? Well, this is not an exact kind of division of time, a bit of overlapping, but generally we can say the shorter suttas, simpler suttas, less technical terms or more technical terms, they are very likely to be early and also very short like this sutta. If you compare this, for example, to the Satipatthana Sutta M10, you find the Satipatthana Sutta has longer teachings, where you have the Satipatthana refrain, where the sutta says we have the three modes of meditation, right? You watching the Satipatthana internally, externally, and both internally and externally. Right? That seems to be a later addition, but it doesn't mean that the methods are late. It's just that the description is mentioned quite late. Of course, it's good that such statements are made so that the teachers can explain in greater detail to us what is it we have to do in Satipatthana. Of course, let's look at these three modes. First, we practice the four Satipatthana internally. You watch yourself, your own breath, and so on, which is quite simple. And then there is externally. In the case of the breath, it's possible. We hear someone else's breath, instead of being distracted, we just watch the breath like our own, or we can reflect on it as impermanence. But it becomes a problem when we talk about feelings or thoughts, even more difficult, and even the Dharma is difficult still, unless we can read minds. How do we know the mental state of another meditator? In the case of feelings, the commentary says, of course, we can look at another person's face, and from that we can know the person's mental state. But then again, in meditation, we normally would not do that, because looking at people's faces, looking at other people, we can easily be distracted. So, and then we have even the third mode, even more tricky, internally, externally. Okay, you do both kind of alternating, definitely not at the same time. Again, it's quite tricky. Again here, one possible explanation is, let's say you take breath, watching the breath, okay? So internally you watch the breath within, you watch your own breath within, and then as you meditate you hear someone else breathing heavily, and you use that as your object, rising, falling, impermanence. Internally, externally here can be taken as simply taking that you don't differentiate whether it's yours or the other person's. You just take it as an object, just like that, in other words. Neither within nor without. That's one way of looking at it. So my point is, once you have these three modes, it becomes technical, and you have to explain so many things. But if you follow this short instruction of this, the Satipatthana Bahiya Sutta, you find you'll be able to do the Satipatthana quite well by itself without the Satipatthana refrain. Unless, of course, we just take the last few lines of the Satipatthana refrain, where it just says, you just, whatever you see or around you, you just take it as something in a way which will not hinder your meditation. In fact, it will help your meditation. So there's a broad hint to reflecting on, say, the impermanence of all those outside events happening, instead of going through all these strict three modes of the Satipatthana refrain. So my point here is, you have this very simple sutta here, with which you can actually practice Satipatthana quite simply, quite directly, which is enough. So the later suttas, while trying to be very systematic, also becomes almost Abhidhamma-like in a sense that they try to be very rigid, and some parts of it can be quite difficult to explain. Now once you come to that kind of situation, don't worry. Once you look at this kind of sutta, you say, oh, alright, those are extras, technicality, I can just kind of put them aside and stick to this early teaching, which is much simpler. So, and then later, as you practice, as you get more calmness and peace and wisdom, everything begins to fall into place more clearly, and your practice also improve. So in other words, we should not have the idea that we must get it all right the first time we started. Right? That never happens, because wisdom grows like a lotus. It grows over time. We change our views over time. Our wisdom becomes clearer over time. So give yourself that time and start from the very simple teachings, the shorter teachings, the more direct teachings. And here is an example, a very beautiful example in the Satipatthana Bahiya Sutta. And now the task goes with a short reflection. The Buddha's teachings are still recorded in the precious suttas that we have with us. Whenever we carefully study the suttas, we are, in many ways, following his instructions to gain inner peace, to cultivate our wisdom. And this is something we should treasure and practice whenever we can, so that this inner peace, inner light arise in us, so that we will be liberated in this life itself, at least as stream winners. Reflecting in this way is wonderful good karma, by the power of such karma. May we be empowered with courage and wisdom to aspire to attain at least stream winning in this life itself. by the same token, by the goodness we have done, by the virtue of the three jewels, let us send out our loving kindness to all our teachers, to all those who have been kind to us in different ways, to our loved ones, relatives and friends. May they be well, may they be happy, may they see the Dharma in this life itself. And to those too who are seeking and who are lost, may they see the Dharma clearly in this life itself too. May all beings be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.